If you have ever found that you struggle with self-doubt, that sometimes there's a few mindset gremlins, or that you're not showing up in your business as you'd want to show up, or that perhaps you're trying to prove yourself, you're not doing something, you're procrastinating over perfectionism, then listen up to today's show. Today I have got an amazing guest, and we are talking all about imposter syndrome. And so I'm really pleased to welcome Emma O'Brien, who is a rapid transformational coach and mindset coach, as we talk today. So stay tuned and enjoy this episode. Welcome, Emma, to the Equine Business Show. I am so glad you are here. And today we are talking all about imposter syndrome. So, Emma, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm a mindset coach and rapid transformational therapist, and I specialise in helping business owners with all sorts of mindset issues. But one of the big ones that I really do help people with is imposter syndrome, because it's just so common.
Yeah, and it really, really is. And a lot of people may not even know it as imposter syndrome. Like when I was talking about it recently and somebody went, what is imposter syndrome? How would you describe it? Like, how does it show up in what you do?
Yeah, so for most people, it kind of disguises itself as this general uncomfortableness that follows them around, and it's a sort of nagging feeling that maybe you're not as good as people think you are, or perhaps you're only playing at this and at some point you're going to get found out. So the word imposter really it is about feeling a bit like a fake and a fraud, and there are so many reasons why people might feel this way, and also there's lots of different ways in which it can impact them. So I think that's why some people perhaps don't really understand it as a label, but having the label actually gives us a vehicle to talk about it and normalize it, which I think is what we need to do more of, really.
Yeah, and it's something that like I've got quite a lot of experience in myself. Like I have really, really, really struggled over the years, and if it wasn't for loads of amazing coaches and people who have helped and supported me, because I think it kind of intertwines, as you said earlier. It's like your low self-esteem, like not valuing yourself, not valuing what you do, and then all these mindset gremlins. Like, it's going to sound terrible, I can often hear my mum going like at me, and then that holds us back, and it stops us actually stepping up.
For sure. And I think people experience it as that negative chatter, like you say, which, it may not even be their own voice. It could be like the critical voice of a teacher or a parent going, you're not good enough to do this, and who do you think you are, to do that. And I think people experience it in terms of procrastination or avoidance or perfectionism. Really overworking to try and sort of prove themselves, or to not be found out as not good enough. So it all comes down to that feeling of not feeling good enough often, but the behaviours and some of the nuances around it can be quite different for all of us. I mean, for me in my corporate career, it manifested in itself as really, I used to sort of keep changing role quite a lot, so that I would never be, I always thought that at some point I was going to, like, the luck would run out and I would be seen as not the competent person that they thought I was, and I've only realized that sort of once I trained as a coach and started coaching people, and I understood this as a phenomenon. I was looking back at my own patterns of behaviour and realising that I was doing that. And the other thing that I would do is I would enhance other people. I would develop and bring on other people. And then you know, almost say to them, they're ready to take on my role now. Let me go and do something else and move on. And it was all quite a clever way of me keeping on moving so that I never sort of got found out. And also picking fault in my own work was quite common for me as well. So I was probably, I don't know how many people in their reviews actually would be the one going, well, I think it requires focus, you know, it's a development area, and everyone's going, what? That's a strength. What are you talking about, woman? So it was very interesting how I sabotaged quite a lot of my career, or different parts of my career in HR and learning and organisational development and transformational change, which is what I used to specialise in. But the good thing is that it's really equipped me with the understanding about how this manifests and plays out and just how damaging it can be. And obviously gave me the steps to help other people, because I didn't set out to specialise in this. I will just say that it was, you know, I've been working with business owners and sort of more broadly with mindset, depression, anxiety, all sorts of different things. And it was only when, you know, being around other business owners and entrepreneurs that I started to recognise this same pattern. And now when I do guest expert slots for people or speaking events, and I get people to sort of put their hand up if they recognise, you know, some of the symptoms that I'm talking about, and literally, you know, all the hands in the room go up. So
yeah, I think we've all got those at some level. I mean, just some people are more severe, and it really is. It's so harmful if we allow ourselves to not deal with it. Like I had, I used when I was a kid, I wanted to go into acting. I used to love to sing, and I allowed a load of stuff to tell me that I wasn't good enough, that I couldn't do it. Who was I? And so I just stopped, and it got to the point that I refused to even hum a tune. I haven't been on stage since I finished my A levels. It was just like, no, not good enough. And even though that was like when I was a kid and I've moved on and I've had jobs and I've done all sorts, that from then has played out in every single thing that's come after it. Like all the businesses that I started, and at the time I felt that they crashed and burned and failed and everything else. It all came back to that little decision of actually believing those lies about myself.
Yeah. And that's such an important part of really understanding this. So if any of the symptoms that we've talked about, that, you know, the procrastinating, the avoiding, the feelings, the uncomfortable feelings of and self-doubt that come along with it. So if anybody's sort of recognizing that, then you have to trust that you're wearing distorted glasses. That's how I talk about it. You've got a skewed, a biased view of yourself and your capabilities. And you have to be willing to accept, even if you can't see it yet, that you have this distorted view of yourself. And then really it's through a process of exploring that and changing that perception that you've got of yourself, that you can really overcome this stuff.
Yeah, and it was only once I started working on my mindset, and I went back singing last year actually, and it's one of the things that I joked, and just to prove that I could do it. Like even then, like now I'm not pursuing, going out, doing gigs. It's not really what, but it was more just to get some evidence to myself that actually that was I believed a lie about myself, and the problem was I'd set this bar, and I often talk about raising the bar to people, and the trouble is we've set it like here, yes. Right? And every time we push further, it seems to go up with it. And exactly. It's almost like I couldn't see where I would actually be good enough, where I would actually, and it was only kind of when I went, well, do you know what, if they're good enough, why not me?
Exactly. And this is where the distortion all comes from. So very often we will have picked up messages and beliefs about our own competence, our own ability, what's possible for us, what's available to us from when we were a child. So, you know, right from the labels that perhaps we had in our family, maybe maybe you were the caring one, and maybe it was your sister who was the bright one. So you never considered that you were bright, even though compared to other people, you probably are very bright and intelligent, you know. But once you've got that label or message about yourself, then that's how you go around the world believing yourself to be. And, you know, thinking about, what does success mean? What makes you successful? What do you have to do to be successful? What's competence? When are you competent? When are you good enough? How are you measuring all of that? Now, these are questions that we don't ask ourselves, yet we're all operating with our own rule book about what these things mean to us. And that rule book dictates our behavior, and our behavior dictates our outcomes, you know.
Yeah, and it's kind of like it's one of the things that I used was to like gain that evidence. And I did a workshop recently with a whole load of entrepreneurs before Christmas about galloping into 2020, and I asked some key questions on all of my different Gallup frameworks. So it's like about getting in front of people, and one of the insights, one of the ladies at the end, she said, I thought I was going to score really badly at a certain part, and actually I'm better than I thought I was. And I said, yes, sometimes we just need we need the right questions rather than the questions we ask ourselves, because the questions we ask ourselves, as you say, are biased.
Exactly. So we have something called confirmation bias, which is that we will only let in information. In fact, we'll only see information that fits with our belief system. And you can play a little game with yourself, you know, around this. So I have two different examples. So one is, you know, when you sort of think, oh, you see a dress somewhere like Next, and you think, oh, that looks unusual. I like that. I'll buy that. And then you see about 5 people wearing the same dress. Or perhaps you're looking for a new car, and you don't notice that many of the make and model and color that you're looking for, and then all of a sudden you see them everywhere. Well, that's because your brain is always filtering for what it thinks is important to you, and what it thinks is important to you is what you tell it. So if you've been telling yourself these stories, then it will only ever give you, you know, let you see information, or that you allow you to receive information that fits with it. So if you're telling yourself you're not good enough, if you're telling yourself that you're a fake and a fraud, then you're more likely to get information that fits with that and not spot opportunities. So I have a phrase, you know, the action that you take when you feel like a fraud is nowhere near as good as the action you take when you know you belong. Because when you know you belong, and you've got your, you know, your area that you are, and it's your space, it's your zone of genius, and you really fit that, then you're gonna take action from a place that is consistent with that. And when you have that belief about yourself and that confidence and that conviction, then of course you're going to see opportunities that align with that to enable you to take it forward. So perhaps that's speaking opportunities, maybe it's competitions or awards, or opportunities to collaborate with other people, or new clients, or new products and services. So it has such a big impact on us in business when we are in that other place. You know, if we're on the other end of the spectrum, feeling doubtful about our abilities, not really seeing all that we're capable of in that more holistic way, then, you know, we miss out on a lot, and it stalls business, particularly small business. You know, we're working on our own, we're with our own thoughts, we're locked in our own little definitions of ourselves, and, you know, competence, success, and all of those things we were talking about. And that's where you need help. You need help to see it. You need help to overcome it, so that you can kind of build that new evidence bank for yourself.
Yeah, and I've always said, like, you just can't do it on your own. You just, like, everybody thinks, oh, it's okay, mindset, I can read a book, I can do, but again, we can't get out of our brains. We can't challenge our beliefs by ourselves very often. It's really, really hard, like, especially when you're down and you're really struggling. And so it was one of the best things that I personally did for my business. I know when I started this business, I put a couple of posts out, and I got clients within 24 hours. And I remember at the time just going, oh gosh, I can't cope. And so the first thing I did, even though I hadn't actually taken any money, but I knew it was coming as I got a coach, because if I hadn't have got that support then, and at the time I got a business coach, I thought that's what I needed, but actually she said the business is the easy stuff. You don't need so much help with that. It's more the other stuff that's going on in your mindset, and it's the best investment anybody could ever make. Definitely.
Yeah. And it's, you know, the kind of process that I teach, I've created my freedom framework around the steps to take, and I've been really testing it out this year. But really, it all starts with having that clarity and awareness, because if we don't kind of look under the bonnet and see what's going on, you know, we can't change anything, you can't fix what you don't understand. So having that understanding and acceptance of how this is probably playing out for you is definitely step number one, even though that can feel a little bit uncomfortable, but it's a necessary part of it. But then so is moving beyond that. So that's the bit where some people get stuck. They start to become very problem aware and notice it, and it almost takes them down further. So then you've got to move on to, so what do you want, you know, what do you want instead? And that means building a different definition for yourself of success, of visioning what does that mean for you in your future? What do you really want? You know, are you still living by the definition of success that you picked up growing up, you know, when you were 6 or 7 or 8 years of age, and now you're, you know, 36 years of age, and it's like, actually I can define what I want that to look like for me now. You know, and it's not about working hard, it's not about you know, sort of not having family time, or you can only have one thing or the other. You know, those are some of the common misconceptions that we grow up with, just from picking up, you know, how we think it should be.
Yeah.
And then really understanding ourselves from a much more holistic perspective. So one of the things I bring into my work, as well as the subconscious belief transformation work, which is where I use rapid transformational therapy, is really to bring in the strengths component, because so many business owners really have a hard time recognizing and then claiming and aiming their strengths in their business and in their life. And when your strengths are your natural ways of thinking, feeling and behaving, and so many people don't even realize that they are their strengths, because it's just a bit like the bridge of your nose. You can't see what you're really good at, and so you downplay it. You think, oh, that's nothing, you know, surely everybody can do that. And very often that's where your genius zone actually is. So that's a big component of the work that I do, really encouraging people to explore, become really familiar with their strengths, and then think about how they can lean on them more in their business.
Yeah, it was one of those things actually that was quite eye-opening for me, when I actually asked people, like, what did they think that I, like, what did they perceive and feel, and the amount of people that came back to me and said, Jenny, you're approachable. And it hadn't even occurred to me. Like, it naturally sort of come, because say I show up as I am. I'm very like, this is what you get. I don't over edit. I'm very real. I'm very honest about some of the stupid mistakes I've made, and because of that, actually that sort of helps. And it's sort of one of the strengths. So yeah, that's one of the ones that I've sort of deep dive. But how, like, if somebody is sort of looking to explore their strengths, what's the first step of that?
Well, it's really, I mean, the clues to your strengths are the things that you're doing that come most naturally to you, or where you lose track of time. So, or maybe it's the thing that people always would know you for. So some examples might be, you know, you're amazing at planning, and you're like, out of your group of friends, you're the planner, the organizer. Or perhaps you another example might be that you are the person who has to shop for exactly the right gift for a friend. You wouldn't dream of getting people the same gift as each other. You spend time to get that individual gift. Well, that is a talent that is known for success in business, called individualization, where people who have that as a sort of talent theme are known for, you know, playing to the individual rather than sort of the collective experience. So from a customer, if you think about linking that to business, then the customer experience, somebody who really prioritizes that individualization is likely to make you feel very special and unique. And so, but a lot of people wouldn't even consider that was a strength. So it's having it's actually creating a new language for yourself beyond perhaps what you were traditionally thinking about as strengths. So a lot of people talk about, oh, you know, I'm really good at maths, or I'm really good with words, or I'm really, you know, I'm good at talking, or, you know, so it's quite limited. Whereas actually there are so many little nuances of things that can make you super, super successful just by the way that you go about the world. So maybe you're somebody who thrives on plans changing. You know, you're completely adaptable, and you're just in the moment, you know exactly the right steps to take. Now, for another person, that would be the worst thing that could happen to them, and they are detailed, planned, like there'll be a plan and that has to be executed precisely, but that's their talents, you know. So it's really understanding just how unique everybody is. You know, we are all so unique. Nobody has the same blend of strengths and talents. And when you understand yourself in this way, instead of this rounded way that we're encouraged to think about ourselves as we go through the school system, it's all about rounding people off, getting a rounded education, you know. So as adults, we get to play and understand and discover really what makes us completely unique. And when we understand that, there's no need to compare to anybody else. Because
I was going to say, it comes back to sort of, we start to compare where we're at with somebody else, especially, and then it makes us feel like, and it's almost like it blocks our progress. Like it puts the blinkers on to actually see what else we could do.
Of course.
And it's very, very sort of sad for us all, really, because we deserve better.
And it's like we're operating, we're just sort of limited. You know, imagine that our resources are like, you know, off the scale. What's really available to us, and we're operating like with this much of it, you know. And what's worse is we're comparing this to what we see of other people, and probably, you know, finding ourselves lacking in some way. Or the other thing that I see with business strategies as well is that we start to follow strategies and ways of building business that actually just don't align with our strengths, you know. And so the decisions that we make aren't always aligned with who we truly are, because we just don't understand what that is in its entirety. And so that's a big part of what I really advocate. You can tell I'm very passionate about it.
I can feel it as well. It's like, yeah, I'm just as we're talking, because I think, do you know what, it's so true, it's so right. And I've often sort of spoken about how I felt when I was in the corporate world, when I was working in jobs, and just even having to go to their time frames. I ended up so ill, and it was like one of the things that I talk about. I was so ill, like I had chronic fatigue every day. I could barely struggle. I'd got all this mindset stuff going on, telling me how rubbish I was. My money was down. I was living off nothing pretty much. I think my shopping budget for a family of four was about 40 quid a week, and I was trying to work, and I was so exhausted, and it got to the point I wouldn't even allow myself to look at certain things because I didn't believe that I could. And it just spirals, doesn't it? So it's kind of like we've got to catch it, and we've got to know a step that we can take.
And I think my interest in strengths really came from my own experience of depression. So I'm bringing in a culmination of years of things that I've researched and practiced, because when I had depression, I was very disillusioned at the options that were available. You know, medication was something that I took because I just needed to feel better, but I wanted an answer and I wanted a solution that was going to be long term. So when I realized that I was only going to get to that if I pursued that for myself, then that's when I really started to look at what is it that makes us thrive in life, what is it that helps us to be happy and successful, what are the ingredients that go into that. And I got into the work of Martin Seligman. He's often referred to as a sort of godfather of positive psychology, and he did a lot of work on resilience, particularly with war veterans. And one of the elements that he was a proponent of is strengths and understanding your strengths, and that is really key to thriving in life. And he set up the Virtues in Action organization, where you can do a free character strengths assessment. And so that gives people an introduction to what strengths philosophy, if you like, can do, looking at what your natural character strengths are, and then seeing how you can incorporate more of that into your life, so that you can, thrive more, feel happier. And I think particularly in the current climate, more of us need to understand these tools, because the answers to all of it don't come from outside ourselves, it comes from within. And this gives you a really nice tangible thing to hold on to. And then the profiling tools that I use are really more about performance. So I use the Gallup Clifton Strengths assessment, and I'm a certified Gallup Strengths coach, so I can work with people to really help them spot how their strengths are playing out and how they can leverage them into their business and their life, in some of the ways that we've talked about. But it's such an amazing, it makes so much sense to people. It feels like a real coming home for people. It helps them acknowledge and give a voice to the things that they always sort of knew about themselves, but they just didn't know how to articulate or value.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, just knowing that they've actually got a choice. And I remember one of the things I was like, I just didn't know how to get off that.
Yeah. And here's the thing, that believing in yourself is a choice. This is something that I always say as well. You can either build disbelief or you can build belief in yourself. And that's a choice. That's a road to go down. And the road that leads to disbelief, it's not a comfortable place. It's not a place that helps you grow or get what you need to do done. It doesn't help you show up and do that live or post that content. So you have to kind of invest in your own self-belief bank account. And that comes from a positive choice to do that, making it part of the work that you do to show yourself how you're successful, to look at, measure yourself in a realistic way, to take on board feedback and compliments. That's often another attribute of people who struggle with imposter syndrome. They're terrible at receiving compliments and testimonials. It's like, oh, yeah, well. But it's all part of it, and we have to think about, in spite of our feelings, thinking about what is it that people are really saying we're good at and linking it to those strengths, which I think that's where having that, a sort of more of a tangible assessment of your strengths, you can't sort of argue so much with it.
Yeah, every time you're like, well, actually, no, I know that's not true.
It is in black and white, you need to start accepting this stuff. So it is about, like I say, accepting that you've probably got a bit of a distorted view of yourself. And in spite of that, starting to look and spot evidence that challenges that view, using your strengths, challenging those beliefs, and looking at some of the habits that you've perhaps gotten into of avoiding or putting off, or maybe over preparing, putting far too much effort into something that really doesn't require it. All of those sorts of things, really looking at those and starting to challenge them. And then the kind of last bit really is to trust that you're probably better than you think you are and act as if.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to do it, haven't you? And not listen to those things. As I often refer to, like, at this stage, I talk to like how I used to go show jumping a lot. And if somebody said to me, go and jump a horse, I'd probably just get on it and go and jump it. If somebody says, would you jump this horse in 2 days' time, in 3 days' time, I'd have talked myself out of it. And I'd have found every excuse to say that I don't need to do it or that I'm not ready. And I think it's a bit the same with our mindset and stuff. Unless we get the control, we
yes. And I have heard the analogy of our subconscious mind as being a bit like a wild horse. So it's a great analogy for you guys, isn't it? And put yourself as the rider of that horse. Accept that it needs a little bit of taming. And what does that look like for you? What does the horse need to hear for you to be able to take the action that's ultimately going to help you? And that's why communities like yours are so important, because some of the communities, and perhaps in the online world as well, you know, where if you're a bit prone to self-doubt and comparing to others and feeling some of the ways that we've described, and the communities that you're a part of can make it worse. You know, your peer group can make that more of an impact, because again, you know, you can be really blinkered into what you're exposing yourself to and how you're comparing yourself, and you're not looking at yourself in this more holistic way. So the more communities are open and transparent about results, about what's really going on behind the scenes, you know, the more people can kind of have a more realistic perspective about their own business, about their own performance, you know, all of that stuff.
Yeah, and it just cuts yourself a little bit of slack, and to know, like, we're yeah, with horses, we're always training or we're untraining, and with ourselves, we're always training or untraining. And I've always said, in order to train a horse, you have to train yourself. So it's all kind of like, we've got to keep working at this. So you've got some really great stuff that if anybody would like to learn more about what you do, you've got a challenge coming up very soon, haven't you, Emma?
Yeah. So this will be the second run of this challenge. It's called the Belief Booster, and it literally is dipping your toe into all of those areas that I was just talking about. So really kind of unpacking, you know, what are some of the things that are going on for you, what are the impacts, and then moving very quickly on to exploring, you know, what competence means to you, looking at your strengths, thinking about how you can leverage all of that, the beliefs that you've been picking up about yourself, and then really getting you in a zone of taking action and acting as if. So that is like a 5-day sort of little incubator, if you like, to build belief in yourself, which I think everybody needs at the start of 2021.
Yeah, don't be just. And you've kindly agreed to come into my Nail It Mastermind and give us a little bit of a workshop as well. So that's quite exciting. But I will make sure that I put the link to your Belief Buster challenge into the notes on this show. So if anybody's looking to get that, do check out the comments and the notes, and you'll find the links to Emma's challenge. But also, if they're listening to this after your challenge, because that starts on the 11th of January, doesn't it, your challenge?
Yeah.
You've got some other, you've got a really, really great, is it a download? I'm trying to think, like a...
Yes, so I can give you the link to that. Actually, I've got a Believe in Yourself audio, which is a hypnosis. It's a generic hypnosis audio. I obviously work one-to-one with people as well. If there are people who really know that they need to overcome some limiting beliefs in order to make progress in their business this year or in their life, then, you know, that's obviously something, you know, have a look on my website and you can get in touch with me to chat about anything around that might have come up for you during this show. I've got a mindset membership as well, which I'm going to be growing next year, because I think we all recognise we need support to help get unstuck quickly and to make focusing on our mindset more of a proactive thing. So that's something that I'm going to be promoting and building up over the course of next year as well. And I have my group program Believe, which the challenge is like a very ultralight version of. So Believe is an 8-week program where we really go deep into all of those areas and help people take much more confident action in their business over the course of 8 weeks. So lots of different things for people to follow up on if they're interested, of course.
Yeah, and I think that the thing with sort of mindset work is, like we've often said, like when I've said like the bar keeps getting raised, I think as well we've got to know that we've got to be in it. Like we've got to keep working on it, because as soon as we see progress in one thing, then another one pops up, and unless we've got...
Yeah, and I think the thing to really say about that is that, you know, people who aren't in the entrepreneurial world probably won't get it as much. You know, there's a hell of a lot of safety and familiarity associated, well, maybe not so much in the current climate, but quite often within an employed situation. When you're an entrepreneur, you're constantly putting yourself into, or needing to, into that growth territory where your mind, you know, might as well be sharks. It's like, as how we're wired, your mind loves what's safe and familiar. And so it's it's not your fault that things start to kind of, that you realize you're sabotaging yourself, or you realize you keep hitting against this limiting belief or that you feel anxious or have these self-doubts creeping in. It's all protection mechanisms just designed to keep you safe. And it's the clever thing is to know when this is happening, to know what's going on, and to take action to overcome it.
Yeah, definitely. So do take some action. So there's a lot of things that you can do. You can get onto Emma's challenge. You can get Emma's download, and it's brilliant. Actually, I have listened to it loads of times. It makes a big difference. And I must admit, I listened to it before bed one day, and the next day somebody said, "You're really different today. What's changed?" And I was like, "Oh, that's good." So again, it makes a massive difference, and I think we all need it. And like I'm always saying to people, get help from wherever you can, because everybody, as you say, has got different gifts. Like I do some mindset work with my clients, but I work to help them with the business stuff as well. So that's kind of more my side of things. But I think that we've just got to get the help and not be afraid to not feel that we need to work it out on our own.
Yeah, exactly. And different things work at different times for people as well. And just on the hypnosis audio, hypnosis is known to, what it's actually doing is priming your mind, giving your mind some really great suggestions about showing up, about believing in yourself, about the things that we've been talking about. Actually, there was all little smatterings of that within it. And when you're in hypnosis, your conscious mind is sort of drifting away and not being quite so critical, and your subconscious mind is just absorbing all of the great suggestions about yourself, and so that's why you can sort of get this ripple effect of feeling different, of suddenly seeing things differently, even from just a hypnosis audio. So it's great to get that feedback from you, Jenny. Actually, it's really lovely. I love it when people tell me how it works.
And I have it saved somewhere that I can access really quickly, and when when I think, right, I need that, and I'll do it before bed, or I'll do it in the morning, because it's one of those really, really powerful tools. And I know hypnosis is something that I've often recommended to people, and I have sort of said, go and check yours out, or just YouTube is a great place to get some good but it makes a big difference. It's a change that we can do really quickly, isn't it? Rather than
exactly, and particularly if you do it regularly for 21 days, and you would see and experience a significant benefit, because the mind learns by repetition. So the more you're repeating those words and phrases, the more it goes in, and the more you get that impact. It starts to change your beliefs.
And so I'd highly recommend it. So do go and grab that, and if you are listening to this before January the 11th, get in on Emma's challenge, so that I can hopefully see you there as well. I'll try and make sure that I show up for that too. And thanks so much, Emma, for coming in today to talk to us. I really, really appreciate your time, and it's been a really insightful podcast and episode today, and I'm really grateful that you're here, so thank you so much.
Thank you, loved it.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Equine Business Show, and do of course make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss any of the amazing guests that I've got lined up for you over the next coming weeks and months. And if you like the show, please do let me know. Send me a message, hello@jennybush.com, or find me on Instagram at Equine Business Assistant. So for now, thank you for listening, and I will see you very soon. Bye.